Hey everybody, welcome to episode 16 of What Not to Miss with Chris. My goal is to put out quick, relevant content that explains the why behind the what in order to positively impact the freight community. On episode 15, I went over the impacts of the most recent stimulus package on the transportation industry. Today we're going to look at how record high inbound ocean TEU volumes will affect domestic truckload demand throughout Q2. So the graph behind me depicts the inbound ocean TEU volume index since the beginning of the year. This index represents how much TEU containerized volume is being booked with ocean carriers and is measured on a 10-day moving average. Now, once booked or scheduled for departure, it typically takes these containers 14 to 21 days before reaching a U.S. port. Since the beginning of the year, import volumes have been climbing, largely due to the most recent stimulus check issued by the Biden administration, an above-average U.S. savings rate, and a continued emphasis on goods being purchased over services. Now, the dotted white line represents the scheduled bookings 7 days in advance, which means that other than the fact that we are consistently hovering around record highs, we should continue to see heavy import volumes fueling truckload and rail demand well into May. Now, something to pay attention to is not just how much volume we should expect to see inbound into the U.S., but where those vessels will make port. Because at some point in the supply chain timeline, about 75% of these goods will hit the truckload market one way or the other. So by understanding where importers are choosing to route their shipments, we get a better understanding of where to expect elevated outbound truckload volumes. Now behind me is a tree map of import market share into the U.S. by seaport. The data for this map comes from shipments that have already cleared U.S. customs. Anything in red represents a month-over-month decrease in market share from February to March, and anything in green represents an increase. The largest market size and percentage change is read from the top left to the bottom right. Now, while West Coast imports are still extremely elevated and congested, as we've discussed several times in the past, both Long Beach and LA have seen a decrease in market share from February to March. What's interesting is how importers are trying to shift shipments to different ports in order to decrease delivery times. So for example, take a look at Savannah, Norfolk, and Charleston. All three are East Coast ports that saw a boost in market share from February to March, according to customs data. Now, if you wanted to take a look at these markets in more detail, we can look at their specific inbound TEU volume index. Earlier, I showed you the inbound ocean TEU volume index for all of the U.S. The three lines here represent the index for Savannah in blue, Charleston in orange, and Norfolk in purple. Over the past year, we've seen an upward growth trajectory from all three, especially since the beginning of 2021. And based on the projected volumes over the next 7 days, the outlook looks bullish. So finally, I want to go back to the comment I made earlier regarding how roughly 75% of import volumes reach the truckload market at some point during the supply chain process. The map behind me represents a current month-over-month view of outbound tender rejections by market. The darker the blue, the higher percentage change in rejection growth over the past 30 days, and the darker the red, the greater decrease in rejections. White markets represent little to no change in rejections. If we focus on Savannah, Charleston, and Norfolk, you can see that while imports are not the only driving factor as far as volumes and rejections are concerned, there is a direct correlation to an increase in import volumes and outbound truckload demand around the surrounding port markets. Now, shippers and carriers have become accustomed to robust imports in volumes out of large West Coast ports like LA and Long Beach over the past year, allowing them to establish relationships and build an infrastructure in and around these markets. That is not necessarily the case for shippers and carriers supporting importers who have begun diverting shipments to the East Coast. And as this East Coast demand continues to increase, we could see a heightened level of volatility leading to strong carrier displacement, ultimately keeping upward pressure on rates until more capacity arrives or demand subsides. So for more information, please feel free to reach out to me directly or look us up at bridgelogisticsinc.com. Also, if you found this information beneficial, please like, share, and or leave your comments below. And until next time, I'm Chris Seeds, and thanks for joining me on another episode of What Not to Miss with Chris.